Section 7. Manipulate data and worksheets. In this section, we are looking at the various ways of manipulating data and worksheets in Excel. It will cover the following questions. 15. Special paste options. 16. Fill cells using autofill. 17A. Insert and delete rows and columns. 17B. Insert and delete cells. From the study guide, which is provided to you with this course. This is a fantastic aspect again. It is really a very nice aspect that we can use. It's called paste options. Now in this example, he says, classes 3, copy the totals from row 38 on the January worksheet and paste just the values into cells B38 through M38 on the forecasting worksheet. बोलता है ठीक है, तुम डेटा को कॉपी करो एक शीट में से और दूसरे शीट में पेस्ट करना है. तो ऐसे ठीक है, कर लेते हैं. Let's go to classes 3 and try this out. So he's telling me to select this data from B38. Okay. This is my data. I selected it. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to forecasting sheet. And he said, go to the same location. I'm going to the same location, 38. And he said, over here, now you paste it. So I will do my normal paste. क्या हुआ रे? क्या हो गया? I had copied some numbers, but what I'm getting is all zeros. So when I do copy and when I do paste, the data which got copied has got copied without its actual value, because this data which I have copied is a data which is based on a formula. As you can see, there is a formula over here, equals to sum opening bracket closing bracket. When I did a copy and when I did a paste, the data did not get copied, the formula got copied. So whenever you will try to copy some data from one cell, from one sheet, which is based on a formula, understand the difference, please. The data is based on a formula. If I try to copy that data and if I paste that data onto the other sheet, I will not get the data. I will get only the formula. If the data is normal, now this data is normal data, 35 normal data है. मैं इसको कॉपी करता हूं और इधर जाके पेस्ट करता हूं तो वो डेटा आ गया, बिकॉज ये नॉर्मल डेटा है. बट फॉर्मूला में देखो क्या आया, अभी 35 आंसर आया, because he is now looking at all these cells and whatever numbers I put here, those numbers he will start showing me down where I copied and pasted my data which had formula. So always remember, when you are copying and pasting some data which has a formula, you should not be using the copy paste function. You will copy this data, you will go to forecasting sheet, and under paste, there are various options given to you. Paste has so many different types of options. In this, there is one option which is known as paste values. Paste values has got three other types of paste. I'm right now choosing the first one and I'm saying, okay, my data now is exactly the same as the first sheet. So I got the same numbers from January in my forecasting. Again, understand, I have got only the values. There is no formula. See on top, formula is gone. I'll click on any of these cells. देखो, formula है नहीं भाई. Formula चला गया. Because what I have done, I have copied some data and I have simply pasted that data. I did not copy and paste the data along with the formula. So the first case of copy and paste is only copying the formula. The second case which I did, where I did a copy and I did paste values, is only pasting the values of these cells and not the formula. So tomorrow, if any number changes over here, number will not change over here. देखो ये 981 ही है, जबकि इधर 937 है. बिकॉज यहाँ पे फॉर्मूला कॉपी नहीं हुआ, यहाँ पे सिर्फ डेटा कॉपी हुआ. तो ये डेटा तो चेंज होगा ही नहीं. When is this useful? This is useful in case I am working on this sheet on a day-to-day basis. कि आज मेरा डेटा का जो टोटल है वो इतना है, तो यहाँ पे मैं क्या करता हूं, दिखाता हूं आपको ये कितना काम का चीज है. वापस यहाँ पे मैं क्या करूंगा, यहाँ पे मैं डालूंगा एग्जांपल द डेटा एज ऑफ जुलाई 28, देन डेटा एज ऑफ जुलाई 29. तो एवरी डे का डेटा मुझे ये शीट में डालना है. दिस शीट will go on changing on a daily basis. At the end of the day, when I'm wrapping up my work, I will simply copy this data and I will go to the forecasting sheet and July 28th के जगह पे I will say paste values. Then I come in the next day, which is July 29, and I start working on these sheets. यहाँ से कुछ कम हो गया, यहाँ से कुछ कम हो गया, यहाँ से कुछ कम हो गया, तो मेरा ये डेटा चेंज हो गया. ये 937 हो गया, ये 903 हो गया. मैं इस डेटा को अभी एंड ऑफ द डे सिलेक्ट करता हूं, इसको कॉपी करता हूं, फोरकास्टिंग में जाके इधर मैं बोलता हूं पेस्ट वैल्यूज. आई गेट ईच डेज डेटा. Like this, I can create an entire trend of every day's sales or every day's data simply by copying and pasting using the paste values option, this one. It's connected to something that we call as autofill. It's an interesting feature of Excel, the autofill feature. It basically tells us about how data can be spread across our sheet by automatically filling it. So this particular example is a very simple one. Let's look at the example first, and I will go in detail with the other aspects of autofill. So he says student budget 1, use autofill to add 12 months to row number 2. Then use autofill to fill the gym membership, cell phone, gas through the month of December. So what he's saying is that to basically use the autofill to add 12 months to row number 2. So when we open student budget 1, let's open student budget 1. And here he tells me that I've got January, February, March. So he's telling me you have to fill the remaining months of the year. So I'm simply going to just use the autofill and I get my data till December. So now this was very simple. January, February, March. March के बाद जैसे ही मैंने stretch किया, December तक data आ गया, and I successfully filled my months of the year. Now, leaving aside that, if I was looking at filling any data which has text, now the question and answer is already done, just to let you know. That was the question. This is the answer. This is how we had to do it. I'm moving away from the question. Similarly, there are numbers here 10, 10, 10. And if I have to do a, autofill of this data 10. So if I'm doing an autofill now, I'm getting the number 10 in all my cells. If I have to do 100, I will get 100 in all my cells. If I do 60 over here, I'm getting 60 in my cells. The 10 and 100 were a constant figure. That means in every month, I was paying 10 only. January, February, and March. The 100 also is a constant figure. January, February, March. But the third figure of gas is not constant. It's 40, 50, and 60. That means there is an increment of 10 every month for the gas. That's what the format is showing me. So if I had to do an autofill with the same format as I have over here, 40, 50, and 60, I will select 40 till 60. That means I will select all these 3 cells. And then I'm going to do an autofill. And I will get the increment of 10. If I was doing only 60, I would get 60 in all the months. So whenever you're dealing with a series of numbers, and if those numbers are in a particular pattern, like over here, there's a pattern of a difference of 10 in each number. Because of a particular pattern, then I will select that full pattern. And after that, I will do the autofill so that the pattern continues. This pattern could be any pattern. It's 40, 50, 60. If this pattern was something like this, where it was 43, and after some time it would be 57, and after some time it would be 65. This is a pattern again. 43, 57, 65. That means there is some increment, but the increment is not a round figure. Earlier it was 40, 50, and 60. So the increment was just of that 10, 10, 10. But here it is random figures. But there is an increment. So I'm not going to sit and bother about calculating what is the percentage of increment, how many numbers is the increment of. I know there is a pattern being followed. I'm going to select that pattern. And I'm going to increase it based on that pattern. Now my increment is exactly based on the same pattern of 43, 57, and 65. So let's come to question number 17. 17 question has got 2 parts to it. let's look at both the options. What is he telling us to do? For us, simple है ये rows and columns. There's nothing very difficult in it, but it's an interesting feature. It's an interesting aspect that we should be looking at. He says student budget 2, insert 2 columns between January and December and January. Then insert 2 rows below the top row of the worksheet. So if I have to open student budget 2. So I've opened student budget 2. I've got some data. He's telling me आपको rows और columns insert करना है. ठीक है, no problem. He says I want you to insert 2 columns. So I'm assuming this data of mine is also stretched across to January and February. काम करता हूं मैं. ये पैटर्न थोड़ा अजीब है. ये पैटर्न में 40-40 आएगा. अभी 60-50-40 करूंगा तो इधर अलग आ जाएगा. ये भी करके देख लेते हैं. सिंस इट्स अ पैटर्न अलग ही आ गया ना. इट्स गोइंग इन डिक्रीजिंग ऑर्डर. ठीक है. He said insert 2 columns between December and January. So I'll simply choose January and February. I'll choose both these columns because he's telling me he wants 2 columns between December and January. इसीलिए मैंने 2 columns select किए. And I will simply go to insert and I will say columns. And I get 2 columns between December and January. The next thing he's telling me, he wants me to have 2 columns. ये month के पहले 2 column डालना है. एक column तो एक row डालना है. एक row तो आ गया पहले, एक और row add करना है. In that case, I can just select 1 row and go to insert and say insert sheet row. तो मेरे को 2 rows आ गए before month. Like this, I can insert rows and columns. This was the first example that he gave us in question number 17A, how to insert certain rows and columns. In 17B, he tells us insert a cell above cell A7. Then delete the cell B2, shifting the remaining cells upwards. Okay. एक बोलता है insert a cell above A7 और दूसरा मुझे बोल रहा है delete a particular cell. Now, let's do this first. तो A7 के ऊपर बोल रहा है insert करने के लिए, so I will go to insert and I'll choose insert cells. Shift cells down, I say yes. ये insert हो गया. वो बोल रहा है B2 सेल के पास डिलीट करना है सेल, so I go to delete cells. Now when I'm going to delete cells, there are options which come to me. Shift cells up, shift cells left, entire row, entire column. ये थोड़ा ट्रिकी हो सकता है. अगर मैं शिफ्ट सेल्स अप बोलता हूं तो मेरा डेटा गया, जनवरी ऊपर आ गया, बट ये मुझे डिलीट तो करना है सेल. सो आई विल चूज द ऑप्शन शिफ्ट सेल्स लेफ्ट. व्हाई? बिकॉज इट्स नॉट गोइंग टू अफेक्ट माय एंटायर डेटा विच इज डन. डिलीट भी हो गया, पता भी नहीं चला. So when you are deleting certain cells, you have to always understand that there is a difference between deleting cells, deleting rows or deleting columns, and inserting cells, inserting rows, inserting columns.